And now we are going to go to talk about delivering the presentation itself. So I'm going to tell you something that I didn't know before. Even the best presenters are nervous before giving a presentation, but they just don't tell you.
Yeah, when I'm presenting, I think that I'm usually pretty confident when I'm presenting, but uh, when I present, I try not to go first and I try not to go last, and that's partially a function of I want somebody else to go first, so then I don't I can see what's expected, and then I'm like, okay, they went. It's like they broke the ice, and then I feel fine going. But then if I wait too long, then I let those nerves like, okay, I thought I was ready, and then it's like that voice in the back of my head starts to get too loud, and it's saying like, oh, what happens if we do this? What happens if that happens? And that voice in the back of my head gets too loud, and I'm like, I can't go. So I usually, when I present, um, I always try to go second or third, and that's what makes me feel the most comfortable when presenting. It gives me the most false sense of confidence.
Oh no, okay. Yeah.
But knowing those things about yourself, uh, are you the kind of person that just wants to like you gotta just jump in and get it done? Then maybe you want to present first, or maybe you're the kind of person where you want everybody else to go because you're looking at I want to make sure that I got everything done and I can rehearse it a few times while other people are talking or something like that. Like make sure everything looks right. Then maybe you're a person that wants to go later.
I am one of the person who wants to go first because then I'm done and then I can focus on listening to whatever people are saying. Yeah. So that's why I like it. And as I said before, your audience is there to listen to what you are presenting. So no matter how you do it, they are still gonna listen to you because that's what their schedule is. So even if you get nervous, just go for it, and you can try some grounding techniques. People are talking about like take a deep breath, or some people are just like looking at their presentations instead of the audience, but even that's not like a great way to do it, but still the audience is still gonna receive something from that. And remember, any presentation is better than an empty stage. It's better to just go there and read your slide from beginning to end than not being there at all.
Yeah. Uh, there are some things that I know that make that if you don't know where you're presenting, and this has to do with like you were mentioning before, know like, am I going to have a presentation where I can use a projector or a whiteboard? Well, other things I've seen people do is in some places they have microphones because it's a big room. And so do they have a microphone that goes on your shirt, or do they have a microphone that's attached to the computer stand? Because I notice that here we're talking about you get nervous, and one of the ways you can deal with that is walking. Because when you get nervous, you start to some people get jittery and they need to do something, and walking is a really great way to get rid of those jitters. However, if you have a microphone that attaches to you, you can walk around. But if there is a microphone that's on the computer and you feel like walking around, then you start to sound like this, where you're talking, and then you might hear things go in and out. So that has to do with knowing what you can do, and you might still be able to walk around, but those walks might not be going back and forth across the stage. They might have to be going in little circles around your podium or something like that, because you just have to know what you're working with and how you can adapt in order to make your presentation still accessible to everybody in your audience.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
Yeah.
And let's talk about ways to engage your audience. So the first thing is maintaining eye contact.
Eye contact.
Maintaining eye contact. Like this is very, if you can, as I said before, if sometimes you are not ready to give eye contact yet, and that's okay, but when you are ready, just do it. And
That can be like sometimes what I tend to do when I do it is that I will try to make eye contact with a random member of the audience, and then later I will try to next time I try making eye contact, I'll choose another random member, so that it feels like it's more, and usually in a different spot, because uh, what you want is you want the students to feel like, or whoever you're presenting to feel like you're talking to them. And by making eye, if you just generally look at the crowd, uh, they will feel that. They will be like they're just talking to the audience. But if you were to look directly at the person, that's this feels much more, I'm talking to you. So right now I'm looking directly into the camera, and it feels like I'm more talking to you. But if I'm looking, the way I have been for most of the video is I've been like talking in the general area. It feels like I'm more of talking to a crowd. So if you want to encourage people to ask questions, you want to kind of focus in on one particular person. It's not just the fact that you're doing eye contact, but you saw probably that my body also acted differently when I was talking, when I felt like I was talking to a single person. And that's what the eye contact does. And when you do that eye contact with a specific part of the area, in that general area, they will all feel like you are talking to them. And when you talk to a different, when you make eye contact with a different spot, they will feel like you're talking to them. And so by doing that, you now engage like those two areas of the crowd that are going to feel like you're talking to them. And the more you do that with different places, the more you will feel, the audience will feel like they're part of the conversation, and not that they are taking a lecture from a teacher or something like that. A passive lecture where they don't have to do anything but just like almost like watching a video where they're just like listening, half listening and taking notes. They're going to feel like they need to engage.
yeah, and then you can also create some dynamic discussion, and this needs to be like written, prepared in advance. There are some people who are really good at like animating things instantly, but if you want it to go really well, have some questions written on the slides beforehand.
Yeah. There's a lot of ways to interact or to include dynamic, and that's kind of what the eye contact will help with. It'll kind of bring people into the conversation where you can start to, where they may be willing to ask questions. You can also ask them questions, like you were saying. That's a way to dynamically involve. But the eye contact is kind of like an invitation to join in the presentation. The dynamic discussion is, it's not necessarily always a question, but it may also be like asking your audience to try something out. So I've seen like with meditation, a presentation on meditation, they'll or someone telling a story, they'll say something like, "Close your eyes." Now, once your eyes are closed, I'm going to tell you something. Envision this in your mind. And so things like that would be something that is dynamic going on, and it'll invoke more discussion and talks in there. And then you can ask the questions and be like, what did you visualize? The dynamic discussion may not actually be like them talking with you. It may also be them talking with their neighbors, or like, oh yeah, did you feel like this way? Or you want them to really be asking these things not only to you or even to their neighbor, even to themselves, like what was just happening there, what's going on, because when they're asking questions like that, and if you can anticipate them, those questions, you can then like have your next slide being like, did anyone visualize, when I told them to visualize an apple, did anyone visualize it being red? did anyone not visualize it? But all sorts of things like that. And so you can, this is all kind of like coming together to really engage your audience on a deep level.
Yeah, if you are presenting online or in a facility with the internet, then I found using a collaborative board very good because it ensures that every attendee can participate simultaneously. So you can use something like there are different parts of that. There are like you can use Jamboard from Google, which or Padlet, which you everybody can write or post some stickers, and it appears on the slide, and people can see everybody's notes there, and it's really good. And even if there is a time limitation, each attendee can learn from others' posts that were like posted there instead of like asking a lot of people to contribute to the discussion. It's really helpful.
I haven't done very much with collaborative boards, but I do know that they're very useful in terms of getting feedback from your audience while you're giving your presentation.
Yes, people also use them while brainstorming in a meeting.
Yeah, you can use it with your beta test group to kind of get an idea of anticipating what your audience is going to be asking, because then you can have that can be like where you're like, oh, this is what they're thinking of, and then you can have the next slide, and when you're actually giving your presentation, you have your next slide saying, hey, this is anybody, how many of you guys were thinking of this? And it'll feel, when your audience sees that, then they'll feel like, are they reading my mind? How are they this good?
Yeah, definitely.
Beta testers, that's how they do it.
Yeah. So now let's talk about the topic that you have been waiting for, presenting in a second language. So from attending multiple presentations, I learned that when you speak slowly, it helps a ton. Even if you have a very thick accent, enunciating your words will make the audience understand you. Enunciating your words.
Yeah, there's been a lot of speakers that I've seen where they give a presentation and they don't know the language as strongly. They'll start to speak quieter because they're not as confident in the words that they're saying. And then they have an accent that's hard to understand. And so I'm trying to listen really carefully. And even if there was even just a little bit of noise in the background, I'm like, I can't follow what they're saying anymore. It's too quiet. I can't hear what they're trying to tell me. And so slowly and loudly, that will help you kind of be understood a lot better. It'll give, and you really want to enunciate key words, especially. That way people can pick up on, like, okay, maybe I don't know what exactly they're saying, but I can maybe fill in the blanks.
Yeah. And since it's a second language, practice a lot. And the thing that you really need to practice is how to pronunciate the keywords correctly. Like if you have to learn how to pronouncing, keywords are enunciating and pronouncing correctly, because your audience will be confused if they hear like the wrong keywords. They were gonna ask themselves, are they introducing a new vocabulary or is it your accent? So
yeah, with English, we have a lot of words like that are similar. It's almost not quite like conjugation, although similar to conjugation. Like uh, in the case of pronunciation is like the act of it is the category of pronouncing something. To pronunciate is the act of doing it. Um, and I forget what was the. I was just thinking of the word that I tried to correct in there.
Enunciate.
No, I was saying pronunciation.
Yeah.
And to pronounce.
To pronounce. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't remember exactly what it was. But I do know that there are certain things like this that a native speaker or something like that, they will pick up on, and they're like, okay, that word was used wrong. Um, but you want to practice these things so then you can, maybe you're not doing the right syntax of the word correctly. We do a lot of endings on there at the end of words, and that tells you like their use. So putting ly at the end of a word will mean that it's similar, or it is done in this way. Like if something can be loud, but if you say something loudly, then it's saying like it's describing. Ly, you add to the end of the word to say it's describing. Um, Pronunciate, if you put tion, it's more of referring to a category of things. If you put meant at the end of a word, that's another kind of meaning. All I know Spanish also has this, and I would guess a lot of them, but you put these different endings to the words, and it gives the word a different meaning. Our conjugation, most of the conjugations in our words don't have we don't we don't have most of our conjugations, I should say. We do have slight conjugations, but most of them are at the beginning when we say you speak, I speak. Um, we do say like he speaks, and so we put an S at the end of the word. But a lot of the end of our words come into like uh, how we intend the word to be used, interpreted. The word has a meaning, and then you put that in there. Anyway, that's kind of what the practicing, not so much the practicing, but the loudly and slowly is going to help your audience, who might be more native speakers, understand which one you're trying to use, even if you use the wrong ones.
Yeah, and this is very important. Have a more advanced peers to review your script. It's very important because if this is very crucial if you want to add a joke or a pop culture reference in your talk. Those can like make or break your talk.
Yeah, it's pretty rough to watch somebody try to land a joke and then nobody laughs, and everybody's thinking like, maybe shouldn't have said that.
Yeah, definitely. And when we are saying like more advanced, that doesn't mean like you are gonna grab some advanced speaker and have them sit on you. It can be somebody that just like know a bit more than you.
Yeah. This also can come to the beta audience too, like when they're looking at your script and what you're saying. But it usually is this is looking at something like having somebody else edit your script. I'm looking at that.
Yeah. So let's go to the next part when you have questions how to do. So I've always saying like take notes, take notes, take notes, and I'm gonna say it again now. Have a pen and paper when you present. At the end of the talk, ask questions and um, repeat each questions you were asked before answering them, and that way you are gonna be sure that you are answering the question. It also gives you time to just like think about the question as you are repeating it yourself, and you will be able to answer some questions, and that's okay. But sometimes there will be questions that you've never encountered before, and there are also some people who are just like ask questions to ask questions. And don't panic. Write the question down, and if you cannot answer it, don't say like, I don't know, what is it? What are you saying? I don't know. And that. Just say like, yeah, that's a very interesting question actually, but I don't have an answer about it. I'm gonna look at it and we can discuss about it later.
Yeah, and it's very common for in the academic fields for you'll see this more often with teachers. than you will with students, but because students don't exactly know how to ask questions yet. But you'll often see them asking questions that they have, not about your presentation, but like, this is an interesting idea. I wonder how it can be used over there. And it's that over there has nothing to do with your presentation. So they're not asking questions about your presentation. They're really asking, this idea that you have, how is it used? How could it be used somewhere else? And that's not part of your presentation. You weren't talking about this other topic, but that's what teachers usually are thinking when they're looking at your topic. Sometimes they'll ask clarifying questions, but the these questions that are like, have you used this to think about this other kind of thing? Um, those are ones where it's like you kind of need to know the area outside of there and also look into those things. And they're not always expecting an answer, but usually those are things that you want to, if you even if you do know the answer, it's usually something that's uh, better as a discussion at the end, unless you can just say, no, you can't, it doesn't work.
Yeah, definitely.
Because usually, yes, it works, has to, that's usually like, yeah, and you would do these other things. Even no, it doesn't work, it's kind of like, it doesn't work because, why?
Yeah. Just say you're going to talk about it later, not
Yeah.
past part of this Q&A.
Yeah, there are, and yeah, those tend to get to be the more technical questions, the ones that you have to go in depth with. And sometimes you can answer them on the spot, sometimes you can't. And sometimes you just don't know. And so you just have to say, I don't know.
Yeah. And as always, bring that stopwatch during the presentation and use it. And look at it from time to time and adapt your delivery accordingly. So, yes, some classrooms, some presentation venue has some um, clock with them, but don't expect that. Don't expect everything, every place that you go to have their clock. Bring your own phone and use it stopwatch to keep track of the time.